You're live.
Okay, good evening. This is a meeting of the City of Scottsdale McDowell Sonoran Preserve Commission, a regular scheduled meeting. I'm Steve Dodd. I'm chair of the commission. Our first order of business for the evening is roll call of the commissioners. Start with me. I'm Chairperson Steve Dodd. I'm here. Vice Chair Cynthia Winstrom.
Cynthia Winstrom here.
Okay, we have a new commissioner with us this evening, Commissioner Steve Coluccio.
Here.
Okay, Commissioner Mark Hackbarth, who is not online yet. Commissioner Lori LaPat-Pelasco.
Commissioner LaPat-Pelasco here.
Commissioner Marcia Lips.
Commissioner Marcia Lips is here.
And Commissioner Tawana Parker. And Commissioner Parker is not here yet. Okay. As we move on here through our public comment notice, as you know, these meetings are being held electronically and they're televised on cable channel 11 on the city's and also on the city's YouTube channel. Written comments are being accepted for both agendized and non-agendized items and should be submitted electronically no later than 90 minutes before the meeting. These comments will be emailed to the McDowell Sonoran Preserve Commission meetings posted online prior to the meeting. The spoken comment is being accepted on agenda item 10 tonight. And we have one written on the general plan section. And with that, we will move on to our first item of business, which is approval of the regular meeting minutes from November 19th, 2020. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes from any of the commissioners? No questions and no comments. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
LaPat-Pelasco will do a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
That's Commissioner Lips.
Yes.
Yes, Commissioner Lips. Okay, we'll do the roll call vote on this. Commissioner Dodd votes yes. Vice Chair Winstrom.
Vice Chair Winstrom votes yes.
Commissioner Coluccio.
Commissioner Coluccio votes yes.
Commissioner Hackbarth, if you're here yet. No. Commissioner LaPat-Pelasco.
Commissioner LaPat-Pelasco votes yes.
Commissioner Lips.
Commissioner Lips says yes.
And Commissioner Parker is not available yet. So the minutes are approved. So we'll move on to our first item on the agenda. Business is election of officers. As you're aware, we elect officers at the first meeting of each calendar year, and this is the first meeting for the year. The chair is elected first and then the vice chair. And then they will assume duties immediately. Before we get started on that, I think as all the commissioners are aware, I term out as a member of the Preserve Commission in May of this year. And as a result, I will not stand for re-election as chair at this point because I want whoever is elected for chair and vice chair to be able to serve a full term rather than have the commission have to come back and do this again come spring. So with that, I will throw this open for any discussion, any nominations for chair. And I will take my position as chair and offer the first nomination. I would like to nominate Commissioner Winstrom to be the incoming chair of the commission for the coming year. Are there any, is there a second to that?
Second, Marcia Lips.
And who was that?
Yeah.
Okay. And that was, Marcia, was that you?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, thank you. Be sure to identify yourself because we've got some static here sometimes. Okay.
I did.
See if there's any other nominations.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? I see no other nominations, so we will take a roll call vote on Commissioner Winstrom as new chair of the commission. And I will go down my list, which I happen to be the first one on. Chairperson Steve Dodd votes yes. Commissioner Winstrom.
Commissioner Winstrom votes yes.
Okay, Commissioner Coluccio,
Commissioner Coluccio votes yes.
Commissioner Hackbarth, Commissioner Lepat Palasco,
Commissioner LaPat Palaska votes yes.
and Commissioner Lips,
Commissioner Lips votes yes.
and Commissioner Parker is not here. Therefore, our new chair is not Vice Chair Cynthia Winstrom anymore, but Chair Cynthia Winstrom.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, commissioners.
You're the vice chair now.
Yes. Do you need to announce that?
I'm done.
Oh, okay. All right, so Steve is not done. So, okay, so the new chair Winstrom is taking over at this point. I would like to take nominations for the vice chair position of the commission. As the chair, I will make a nomination for Lori Lepat Palasco as vice chair of the commission. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Coluccio seconds that.
Thank you, Steve. And with that, any other nominations? I'm hearing none, so let's put this to a vote. Chair Winstrom votes yes. And we'll go then to Commissioner Hackbarth, and not here. Commissioner Lori Lepat Palasco,
Commissioner Lori LaPat Palaska votes yes.
Commissioner Marcia Lips,
Commissioner Lips votes yes.
okay, Commissioner Tawana Parker is not here with us, and Commissioner Steve Coluccio.
Commissioner Coluccio votes yes.
Thank you. And with that, we have a new vice chair, Commissioner Lori Lepat Palasco. Congratulations. And she thanked us. And we have someone coming in, perhaps Justin.
Yes, Chair, I believe that Justin has joined our meeting, and so he'll be able to present with his item upcoming.
Super. The next item on the agenda is number 6, review of commission bylaws. This is something that we do annually. And if there are any changes to be considered, then I would ask that we bring that forward, discuss that with possible suggestions for change. If there are no changes recommended, the current bylaws will remain as the governing rules for the commission. I am hearing, go ahead.
Yeah, Chair Wenstrom, this is Croy. If there are none, that's fine. What we do know is that the city attorney's office is looking at some very minor administrative changes that are not ready yet. But if you were to be willing to consider those, we could agendize that for March the 4th, not our next meeting next week, but the March the 4th meeting. And what we would do is we would send those out well in advance once the attorneys have those. As I understand it, I don't know if it was due to a state law change or just a recognition that there may be a minor tweak that needs to be done so that we're in compliance with state law. And so they did note that they wanted to do that, but that was not ready yet for tonight for presentation. If there's anything else you would like to consider, that's perfectly fine. We could address that as well, but that would be the request that we, if you're open to that, that we schedule that for the March 4th meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Coy. Again, I'm still not hearing anything from commissioners. So I'm going to recommend that we take Croy's suggestion to put this on our agenda for March 4th.
If we could get a motion to do that and a second and a vote to put that on the agenda, that would be appropriate. Thank you.
I motion to put the item 6, review commission bylaws, on the March agenda.
And can I have a second for that, please?
Commissioner Cluccio seconds that.
Thank you. And with that, we'll put it on the March agenda.
Roll call vote.
What roll call? So sorry. New commissioner here in this row. All right, people. All right, roll call here. So Commissioner Steve Dodd,
Votes yes.
Chairman Wenstrom votes yes. Vice Chair Lori Plasko.
Alaska votes yes.
Okay. Commissioner Mark Hatbarth, not here. Commissioner Marcia Lips.
Commissioner Lips votes yes.
Commissioner Tawana Parker is not checked in, and Commissioner Coluccio.
Cluccio votes yes.
Thank you. And with that, we will make the change for March.
Yep.
All right, next on our agenda is the 2020 Commission Annual Review. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review that. The commission is required to submit an annual report to the City Council for activities, actions, and other business during the preceding year. Staff has compiled the main points for commission review. The commission can recommend additions, deletions, and corrections to the report and approve it for submittal. Are there any changes or any conversation about this? I am hearing none. So with that, I will ask for a motion to accept the annual report to the City Council as written by staff.
Commissioner Dodd so moves.
Thank you, Steve. And a second, please.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Lori. Vice Chair Lori Plasko seconded that.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. All right. Chair Wenstrom votes yes. Vice Chair Plasko.
Alaska votes yes.
And on to Steve Coluccio.
Cluccio votes yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Dodd.
Commissioner Dodd votes yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Hackbarth is not with us. Commissioner Marshall Lips.
Commissioner Lips votes yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Tawana Parker is not with us. Right. With that, we will go on to item number 8, the McDowell Sonoran Conservancy update with Justin Owen.
Chair and commissioners, thank you for allowing me to give an update tonight. My apologies about the delay. I came from the Human Services Commission and they had a 4.5-hour commission meeting. So I'm glad that this one probably won't be like that. I wanted to give you a couple updates from the Conservancy. First of all, I wanted to thank Croy and Scott for getting us the information on the tentative legislation that was being heard at the state yesterday to the proposal to allow aerial fireworks. Thanks to Preserve staff letting us know that that was on the docket, we were able to mobilize our stewards and send hundreds of emails to our legislators, knowing them that that is not at all a wise idea and encouraging them not to pursue aerial fireworks in one of the most arid states. So I just wanted to personally thank the city staff for that. For the Conservancy, happy 30th birthday to us. Some of you may remember, I spoke about last time on January 21st, we turned 30 years old. So This organization is very, very thankful to everyone who has helped us get here, and we're excited for another 30 years to come. We do have social media and website campaigns for the entire year to celebrate it and help highlight the work of the Conservancy and the Preserve. We are continuing to keep all of our public-facing activities paused due to COVID-19, but we are still continuing with our non-public facing activities, like our patrollers, construction and maintenance projects, and scientific research. I want to reassure everyone that all of this is done while adhering to social distancing and in small groups. As most of you recall, spring is our fieldwork season. It's when we spend most of our time out in the preserve collecting our scientific research. So we are excited to continue with that. And we continue to balance our scientific work with the preserve, with our regional work to ensure that we're collaborating with all of our neighboring open spaces on issues that not only we are facing, but they are facing as well. Our Expedition Days online program is on target still for March to launch. If you remember previously, our in-person Expedition Days activity at Lost Dog, last year we had about 600 Title I students plus our public day. I'm excited to report that our online program, after only being available for signups for a week, we already have over 1,300 students signed up to go through the digital version of it. And just a reminder to everybody, we are still planning to go in person in 2022 and continue the online program. So the reach and exposure that the Preserve is going to have in teaching our elementary school kids about science is amazing. The online program does encompass 5 learning modules, which include a combination of videos, lessons plans, exercises, and more to help engage the students in inquiry-based learning. This also encompasses a video game, which is still being built. We're close to finalization of it, but by design, these all can be offered in the classroom virtually or in a combination of both in class and virtual. So if a student's at home, they'll still have the same access for being able to learn about it. As I said, we do plan on returning to in-person with our online events in the future, and I can say that the program is going to be able to potentially reach thousands of students in both of these formats. We are finalizing our approach to our new education framework, which focuses on everything is connected and continually changing. This will really build out the foundation for how our education programs move forward. So looking at the interconnectedness of everything within our environment and how it's always changing and nothing is static. Last but not least, an update on our stewardship program. I am really excited that the Site Steward program has now launched in collaboration with city staff and the State Historic Preservation Office, with visits to the first sites happening recently. So for those of you that may remember when we brought that up before, the Site Steward program is when we're out monitoring culturally sensitive spots in the preserve to make sure that they are maintained and remain in best shape as possible. Our stewards are also partnering with the city on the amazing new signage at Pima Dynamite Trailhead. So I'm really excited to see how that's coming out. And our key focus right now is really on engaging our stewards. As many of you know, it's tough to stay engaged in a virtual world. So without all of our in-person activities, we are doing an intensive focus on steward engagement, up to 2 to 3 online digital activities for them to participate in a month live via Zoom, where we can still continue education and engagement. And I'm really excited to report, despite being in a pandemic for most of our years, or for most of the year, excuse me, our stewards still have reported over 55,000 hours of volunteer service. And just for comparison, that for year to date, last year we were 64,000. So being at 55,000 versus our 64,000, our stewards are still out there doing amazing work for the Conservancy and the Preserve, and I couldn't be prouder of the work they're doing. That's my update for the Commission, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Justin. Are there any questions for Justin and from the Conservancy's report?
This is Commissioner Coluccio. I do have one question for Justin with regard to the aerial fireworks legislation. Has that, is there any kind of an update from the committee meeting that took place yesterday?
I have not heard an update from the Commerce Committee meeting. Croy may have one, but I personally have not heard one.
And yes, this is Croy. We will have one under the staff report.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You're not closing this out with a vote, right? Thank you very much. Appreciate your time, Justin.
Thank you very much.
All right, on to item number 9, which is the draft of the Scottsdale General Plan. It's a long-range planning project coordination with our liaisons, Adam Huron and Taylor Reynolds, and we look forward to hearing your update.
Good evening, Chair Winstrom, members of the commission. Again, this is Taylor Reynolds with Long Range Planning.
Taylor, could you stand by a minute? This is Adam. I just want to make sure I can prompt your screen on. I'm trying to do the share screen, and I don't have the ability to do that. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
You're good now, Adam. Go.
Okay, thank you very much.
There we go. Thanks, Adam. Again, Chair Winstrom, members of the commission, Taylor Reynolds, here to present case 1GP 2021, the draft Scottsdale General Plan 2035. As you may recall, one of our staff was in front of you a year ago to try and get one of you to sit on our citizen review committee, which worked through updating the 2035 general plan. We've gotten through that process, so we're back in front of you today to do, again, a high-level overview of that process and then go over some of the elements that are specific to your purview. We are in receipt of a couple comments for this item tonight, and I have that on a slide that I'll get to later. Next slide. In terms of what a general plan is, it's a long-range planning document. It's policy-based. It does decide, or it does guide decision-making, but it is not a specific project. It is not a capital project. It is also not regulatory like the zoning ordinance, but it is not rigid or static either. It can be amended, and by state statute, it is amendable. And it also is not just the land use map. If you've flipped through the plan, you can see there's a broad range of policies, or a broad range of topics that are covered within the plan. Next slide. State statute requires that our city has a general plan and that it is effective for up to 10 years. It also requires that we update it every 10 years, and that update includes enhanced public outreach, which includes going in front of Planning Commission, City Council for a possible adoption, and if City Council does adopt a plan, it moves on to the next possible election for voter ratification. So the existing general plan we're working with today was adopted by City Council in 2001, but then ratified by voters in 2002. Next slide. And as I discussed on the previous slide, state statute requires that we update the plan every 10 years. So between the years of 2009 and 2011, there was a general plan update process for the general plan 2011. That included a 19-member working group that included one person from each board and commission, similar to the Citizen Review Committee that I'll get to at a later slide. There was extensive public outreach, and that plan went through the state required adoption process and was adopted by City Council in 2011. Next slide. Unfortunately, it was not ratified by public vote in 2012, as you can see, by a margin of 2%. And thus, the 2001 general plan that we discussed a couple slides ago still remains in effect, and we operate under it today. Next slide. So the city undertook another update process between 2012 and 2014 with the 2035 general plan update. It included a robust amount of public outreach, including a council-appointed task force that met 32 times. And as you can see, we had five community workshops, plenty of open house opportunities, and online engagement. However, this particular plan did not go through the public process, the state statute required process. So it did not go in front of city or planning commission or city council for possible adoption, and therefore was not moved to vote by the citizens. So as a result of that vetting of the plan, this plan has been utilized as the baseline plan for the citizen review process. Next slide. So the Citizen Review Committee is made up of 13 members of the 13 boards and commissions you see on this slide, as they all have relevant content within the general plan. For your specific commission, and as you may be familiar, Commissioner Dodd graciously accepted and sat upon our committee. Next slide. As I stated, the 13-member committee met 13 times. The committee completed their charge by reviewing the entire draft plan, and that is inclusive of the review and consideration of a large number of public comments received. As you can see on the slide, we received over 300 comments. The Citizen Review Committee, and as Commissioner Dodd can attest to, went through line by line and reviewed each of those comments when they were updating the plan. And this ensured that the draft plan was up to date, incorporates further clarity, and where necessary, incorporated new goals and policies. So as we move through this presentation, I will include some of the highlights of the major updates that were brought forward as a result of the CRC process. And at the end, I'll call for any further discussion or input from your commission if you deem that necessary. Next slide. In terms of where we are in the process, the Citizen Review Committee completed their charge in phase 3 in December of last year. So now we're in phase 4 in that state statute required adoption process. So currently we're going before boards and commissions, and then we'll go on to planning commission and city council for possible adoption. And if city council does adopt this plan, we would move into phase 5, which would be voter ratification, which would be the election in this November. Next slide. In terms of how the plan is organized, you can see it's organized in these 3 sections. Section 2 in particular, the chapters house all of the elements of the plan. As you can see, there are 23 elements within these 8 chapters, 17 of which are required by state statute. So the remaining 6, 3 of those came out of the 2001 general plan process. 2 of the other new elements came out of the task force process and were reinforced by the Citizen Review Committee. And then furthermore, the Citizen Review Committee created another new element called the tourism element. Next slide. This slide provides a legend to all of the legislative edits that you'll see as you flip through the plan that the Citizen Review Committee worked through. And as you can see, they put a lot of time into this with all the colorations. Blue, the light blue coloring, meaning that is text that the Citizen Review Committee drafted themselves. Green is text that the Citizen Review Committee took from staff and incorporated. And red is from those public outreach that we heard from the public that they incorporated into the plan as well. Next slide, please. As I stated previously, we were in receipt of these 5 comments from an individual. Mr. Howard Myers sent them into staff earlier this afternoon, and I believe all commissioners are in receipt of these comments. So they will be entered into the public record, and we will include them in future discussions with Planning Commission and City Council for them to consider these comments. But I'll try to speak to them as I get to certain slides in this presentation. Next slide. First element that we'll briefly discuss is the open space element, which recognizes Scottsdale as stewards of parks and open spaces. And it speaks to things like open space types, the preserve itself, and open space management. Next slide, please. This slide depicts the introduction to the open space element. As you can see, there's no coloration there. So really the Citizen Review Committee reinforced previous efforts to draft this element intro text. Next slide, please. This spread notates two of the first goals of this element. As you can see, not a lot of coloration in the text, again, meaning that the Citizen Review Committee reinforced things such as the McDowell providing 4 primary types of open spaces, in particular for OS 1.1, the McDowell Sonoran Preserve. On the right-hand side of the screen, again, reinforcing fulfilling the Scottsdale McDowell Sonoran Preserve initiative. I know one of the comments we received from Mr. Myers had to do with OS 2.3, and that he would prefer some of that language to be that you can see was deleted through the CRC efforts, some of that specificity to be added back in. In terms of the discussion that was there, was staff worked with the city attorney's office, where they discussed maybe backing off some of the specificities in this in OS 2.3, as the text now really intends to lessen the limitations of the previous text. When you have more specificity in a policy, it really kind of hones in on what the policy can be used for, but when it's written a little bit more broadly, we can use it, it's less regulatory reading. Next slide. For this spread, we have 2 more goals within the plan. As you can see, not a lot of text was changed here by the Citizen Review Committee. You can see a lot of the shoulds and the ensure was deleted on the left-hand side. Again, at the time, the Citizen Review Committee was considering less regulatory sounding words such as should or will. But as of recently of this week, we did, long-range planning staff met with City Council at a work study session where they requested stronger language actually throughout the plan. So staff will be working on such throughout the plan in terms of even this page where those shoulds have been deleted, will likely be stronger language again, as requested by Mr. Myers for OS 3.3 in particular. Next slide. For this slide, again, you can see not a lot of text was changed here by the Citizen Review Committee. Again, reinforcing managing open spaces related to land use, surrounding land uses, and managing a comprehensive open space program. So those previous efforts of the task force, and even those that have been brought forward before that, were reinforced by the Citizen Review Committee. As you can see, they didn't edit much here. The next slide. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that the Citizen Review Committee tried to incorporate some public comments, which were to increase trees and shade in public areas for OS 7.7. So that's a new policy drafted by the CRC, really incorporating what was provided by public comment. On the right-hand side of the screen is the open space map, and this map, although it is in the 2001 general plan, this is basically an updated version of that same map. The colorations have been updated to align with text within this actual element specific to continuous open space areas, developed open space areas, and so on and so forth. Next slide. This slide represents the other 2 maps that are within the open space element. On the left, we have the Scottsdale McDowell Sonoran Preserve map. And we've worked with Croy and his staff to ensure this map is up to date, aligns with state trust lands in terms of case 19ZN 2014. And it is updated in terms of the disposition of existing versus planned trailheads. On the right, we can see the visually significant roadways map. Again, this is in the 2001 plan, but has been updated to ensure it is up to date and aligns with those roadways that exist today within the city. Next slide. With that, we will move on to the environmental planning element, which provides goals and policies for protecting and enhancing the quality of Scottsdale's natural and human habitats for future generations. We won't go through every goal and policy here. We're just going to go over that which is really specific to your commission in terms of demonstrating environmental stewardship. Next slide. For this goal, specific to this commission, it speaks to demonstrating and expanding, again, city stewardship and environmental sustainability. Again, as you can see, not a lot of text was changed here by the Citizen Review Committee. So again, they're just reinforcing those previous update efforts by not amending the text. Next slide. Again, another element with one goal that's really specific to your commission is the conservation element, which guides Scottsdale's resource conservation efforts to provide a healthy and diverse environment for current and future generations. Next slide. This particular goal, again, has been reinforced by the Citizen Review Committee in terms of protecting the Sonoran biodiversity and native ecosystems. However, the CRC did agree with public comment, as you can see in red, for Conservation 2.7, which is a new policy, which speaks to encouraging the use of non-chemical pest management strategies, again, which falls under protecting the Sonoran Desert biodiversity. Next slide. This final element that we will go over is the recreation element. The goals and policies in this particular element contemplate the city's recreational facilities and programs and how they serve the leisure and fitness needs of Scottsdale's current and future generations. However, specific to your purview within this commission, we will only briefly discuss one of this element's maps, which is actually the Trails and Trailheads map. Next slide. So as you can see here, this is the Trails and Trailheads map. It does, again, align with some of the things you would see in the open space element, but it, I think, more appropriately fits within the recreation element, as, you know, traversing the trails and trailheads is a recreation type thing. But we did work with, again, Croy, and also we worked, again, Scott Hamilton and even the Transportation Department to ensure that the trails and trailheads depicted here are up to date for this effort. Next slide. As I discussed previously, city staff did meet with City Council this very week in terms of reviewing the draft plan with them as well. And it was actually on Tuesday, and consistent with your purview and the direction by the City Council includes these two items where previously McDowell Sonoran Preserve areas were a subset of the natural open space land use classification. And City Council would prefer that the McDowell Sonoran Preserve be a standalone land use designation. And to furthermore provide protection to the preserve and ensure that these areas remain as such now and into the future, they also would prefer that text describing such would align with the city charter in terms of Proposition 420 that prohibits the alteration of the natural state of preserved lands. And this really does align with some of the concerns I think that Mr. Myers had with his commentary that you received tonight. Next slide, for pages 52 and 74 of the plan, which have more specific definitions of the Scottsdale McDowell Sonoran Preserve in terms of, on the left, character type, and on the right, the actual land use category. So staff will be working on those definitions to, again, align them more closely with the more recent city charter update. Next slide. The implementation chapter is new to the general plan and provides clarity of the purpose of really the general plan, guiding more specific efforts that may be undertaken by city departments, city council, or even boards and commissions like yourselves. So to that end, the implementation chapter here includes the preserved land acquisition as a line item as ongoing. Next slide. timeline here highlights the vast amount of public input opportunities that will be available over the coming months, as well as aligning with, again, the state statutes required update process. So we will be meeting with each board and commission that had a sitting citizen review committee member. We will be conducting open houses or online open houses for folks to participate in. And then in terms of that state statute required process, we'll be going before city or planning commission and then furthermore city council for possible adoption. And if city council does adopt the plan, again, the next election cycle will be in November of this year, all with ongoing community outreach. As you can see that the arrow that is pointing down. Next slide. In terms of other public outreach that's going on, like I said, is an ongoing effort. Our actual website allows for folks to log on and provide specific commentary to the elements within the plan. This is a screenshot from that web page. So keyword general plan updates would get those that are watching at home, or even the commissioners, if they'd like to at home, to go here and provide comment as well. You can submit it there. You can also sign up for those virtual open house opportunities on that web page as well. Next slide. That concludes staff's presentation. Again, I want to highlight the effort and input put forth by the Citizen Review Committee and membership directly from your commission through, again, Member Dodd. Who we really can't thank enough for coming to all those committee meetings. If there's further input that the commission would like to provide, staff is here to collect it and forward it to Planning Commission and City Council for their consideration as well.
Thank you, Taylor. Commissioners, do you have additional comments that you would like to share with Taylor at this time?
Commissioner Winstrom, this is Commissioner Coluccio. I have a couple of questions. One, the city election or the election that would be held in November of this year, is that a special, would that be a special election? Do we know?
Taylor,
or would it be a general election of some sort that included, other things that the voters would vote on?
Chair Winstrom, Commissioner Coluccio, yes, I believe it will be a special election.
Okay. And then I guess the second comment that I want to make, and I guess I would ask for you to repeat, Taylor, the explanation with regard to OS 2.3, which was the subject of one of Mr. Myers' comments. I guess I'm wanting to understand a little bit better why the text was shortened to the point that it was.
Sure. Chair Winstrom, Commissioner Coluccio, in terms of this particular policy, staff did work with the city attorney's office where we worked through the plan to ensure, things didn't sound too regulatory at times. And this was one that was keyed in by their office and again, in working with staff, and that we discussed with the Citizen Review Committee that possibly deleting some of the specificity and making it a little bit more broad would make it less regulatory sounding. And again, it could be more broadly implemented.
Okay, I understand that. The only concern I have is that what we're left with, which is the preserve, the development adjacent to the preserve respects its unique location. To me, that seems a little bit on the vague side. So I mean, that would be my comment. I'd be concerned about how that could be interpreted. I'm not even sure what it really means, to tell you the truth. So just some concern with that particular one.
Commissioner Coluccio will definitely forward this comment along with Mr. Myers. Again, the thought here was that by deleting those items, we wouldn't be just limiting it to those items in the future in terms of how development adjacent to the preserve respects the location. So we wouldn't have to only look at those things that were deleted. We could look at other things as well.
Okay,
But
thank
we
you.
can certainly forward your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Coluccio and Taylor. There's another hand raised. Marcia, you had a question or comment?
Hi, this is Commissioner Lips. Just another mention on this 2.3. Because of zoning and building and development, hasn't this already passed us by? That things that are adjacent or next to the preserve, I mean, are you gonna really stop a gas station from coming in or something? I'm just not understanding. I think it's just a little late for this, is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Taylor, if you like, I
Commissioner
can.
Lip. Sure, you can go ahead, Croy.
Commissioner Lips, this is Croy. There are some areas adjacent to the preserve that are undeveloped, obviously state land that we may or may not have interest in acquiring, as well as some other areas. So for the general plan as an aspirational document to be able to identify that we want to have a certain level of sensitivity adjacent to the preserve, that is certainly appropriate. There are other aspects of zoning ordinance elements that will help regulate and control that, and other elements of the general plan that will speak to those. So it certainly is not inappropriate, and there are many edges of the preserve that are indeed developed or will not change substantially, versus there are some that have yet development to occur. So there is that opportunity. And Taylor, feel free to add anything you'd like to that.
Thank you, Croy.
Taylor, anything to add to that?
I would just, sure, Chair Winstrom, I would just say that when staff reviews development proposals that come through, we would use a policy like this to ensure that any new development, again, recognizes that it is adjacent to the preserve and incorporates those things that folks feel are necessary to be incorporated, either by having open space buffers, ensuring, again, that wildlife corridors are protected, so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments or questions about the presentation that Mr. Reynolds provided to us? If not, I do have a question. That goes back to page 74. We're talking about preserved land may be publicly or privately owned land that abuts city-owned preserve and may be protected through a variety of means, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a little bit concerned about some of that language, and I understand that we are trying to be very general, but I think some of the comments that we've seen from Mr. Myers are concerning that we stay in alignment with the ordinance protecting the preserve. Is there something that you can share with us, Taylor, about the private land? Specifically, what are you referring to?
Chair Winstrom, I think I could elaborate on this a little bit, and Croy, I'm sure, is a little bit more knowledgeable than I. Again, in terms of some of the updates that we heard from City Council, we will be trying to incorporate a little bit more specificity, especially for that charter change that recently occurred. And I think you were speaking to preserved land may be publicly or privately owned.
Correct.
I believe there's some instances along the edge of the preserve, and it might be near DC Ranch area, where there are privately owned lots where they've dedicated a portion of the lot in perpetuity to the preserve, I believe. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Croy.
Real quick, and Adam, I'm not sure what slide it is that shows the status of the the preserve boundary. If you can pull that one up, that might help. The main thing this is simply saying is that within the preserve and as it stands, of the 30,580 acres of protected land that we have, about 2,000 of those are in private ownership. And the graphic that is on the, and I'll have, we'll test Adam and my ability to communicate effectively here. Over on the right side graphic and the cursor that Adam has, moving up into there's kind of a reverse L shape up there in the middle of it, a little bit further over to your left and down. Sorry, come down, down, right there. Yep, that area in there is a fair amount of land that is privately owned. All of those dark green areas some of them are owned by the DC Ranch Community Association. Some are owned by other private entities, some private property owners. And so we do have a number of different areas throughout the preserve. And again, it's 2,000 out of 30,000 acres, so it is not the majority. And that those areas are protected in perpetuity by a number of different mechanisms. They're not singularly by easements, but in many cases they are. And so all the general plan was attempting to do here is identify that protection of the preserve or protection of open space lands can occur in a number of different mechanisms.
Okay, thank you. The one point that came up to my mind as I was thinking of private land was the property that is near the Tom's Thumb trailhead. There is a residence there. Would that also be part of this? Oh,
it's we actually own that land.
We do.
If you may recall, it's a little unique. But we purchased the land, but the purchase agreement, the basis of valuation and everything is that the existing owner would be able to remain in the house until he either leaves it or his passing. And so that is a one and only unique situation that we have like that. So that land we own. So that is public land.
Okay, thank you. And I do remember that from a previous commission meeting. I appreciate that reminder. And so that also will always stay, whatever it turns into as far as natural open space, it is preserved property and not a building within the preserve that would be used for something else.
Correct. And you know, we can bring back as part of our upcoming policy review of addition and other options. One of the things that we can do is review some of these edges and just refresh everyone with what are some of the mechanisms by which these properties are protected. Most of these private properties have a level of protection that requires the city to be part of any change to that. So between the property owner probably wanting to keep it that way and the city wanting to keep it that way, we think there's a pretty high level of protection that occurs in that. But there's a lot of different methods that have been used, and we can walk you through some of those in the future.
Sounds great. Thank you, Croy. Any other discussion? All right, moving on to item number 10.
Can I just double check?
Yes.
Taylor, did you guys require any motion or recommendation from the group?
Croy, no, we do not. We provided the possible action text and just in case they wanted to take some sort of formal action, but really we were here to collect their comments.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Steve's got his hand up.
Oh, Steve?
Colucci.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Colucci. I just want to thank Taylor and Adam for making this presentation here tonight. Do appreciate the update and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Colucci. On to item number 10, which has been withdrawn.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioners, we heard from the applicant for the special use permit for the endurance horse ride several days ago as they were pulling their details together, which also included permits from other nearby land managing agencies. They just weren't feeling like they were getting everything pulled together in a timely fashion, not because of us, but because of some of those other details they had to work with. So they've decided to postpone until either this fall or this winter, and will get back to us when they decide they want to move forward. So for tonight, this item has been withdrawn.
Thank you, Scott. And Croy, do you want to start with item number 11?
Yeah, Scott's got a slide up now for everybody. We'll just talk briefly about Wildland Fire. We're going to bring this back as early as next week or soon thereafter. But we are working with Scottsdale Fire on a number of different things. And you've seen some of these elements before, but this in particular is talking about some of the peripheral edges of the preserve where we have public right-of-way streets adjacent to the preserve. And we have a high level of desire to make sure that we don't get intentional or unintentional fire starts occurring due to people throwing out carelessly a cigarette butt or a chain dragging on a trailer or whatever it might be. And so last year, the areas in red, or some of the areas in red up at the Pima Dynamite were thinned by state wildland fire crews, and that will be starting again in north of that area on Pima Road. I think, Scott, you said February 22nd is the target. And so we did want you to be aware there'll be some more work. We're still working out the details of exactly how far they'll get. And sometimes they get called out on fires, so they don't get as much work done as they might have planned to. So we'll keep you updated. And Scott's now got the slide showing the before slide on the left. And the work after they had gone through that slide shot is taken from nearly the exact same spot looking to the south on Pima Road. And so you can see it's a 50 to 70% reduction in fuel load. And that is what we will be continuing in these areas. So again, in case someone were dragging their chain or throwing out a cigarette butt or a car fire, we give our fire department a much better chance of stopping the fire before it gets into the heart of the preserve. So we're working on that and several other things that we will update you on in the near future. We hope to have many of the surrounding neighborhood communities involved in the FireWise program. There are some that already exist. There'll be work to get more, and there's even opportunities that we're exploring with our great partners, the McDowell Sonoran Conservancy, to have them assisting the city and the fire department in some of that work, and we'll have more presentations on that in the future. So I wanted you to be aware that there could be some upcoming work. We will send you a email to let you know when and where any of that work is, because sometimes it shocks people when we go in and thin vegetation adjacent to the preserve. And once people understand why, they're usually quite understanding and supportive, but we didn't want to shock any of you that work was upcoming. Additionally, Justin had mentioned before the firework ordinance, and we sent that out to all of you. And so a great team effort. I want to thank Brad Lundahl, who is our intergovernmental liaison and works with the legislature, and is the one who keeps us updated on what's going on there. And sometimes those things pop up at the last minute. And we also work with the fire department in the communication and the message and the level of concern we have with those things that are proposed. Obviously, I know many of you, if not all of you, sent out the response that we requested you to offer opinions to the legislature as to what they were proposing. That was only before committee. And again, thanks to all the Conservancy. We also sent it out to many of our neighboring partners in the Tonto National Forest and the County Regional Park and other area agencies and volunteer support groups, the Rio Verde Horsemen's Association and others, to be aware of these concerns, because many people share our concerns about aerial fireworks being introduced into Arizona. I can offer that the committee basically put the item on hold, did not vote on it. That basically means it will most likely die, and that's a good thing. However, we, and particularly Brad Lundahl, will be keep his ear to the ground, because sometimes these things come back in amendments that strike out a completely different proposal and put new language in. And so we will keep an eye on that. This is almost, if not a yearly occurrence, and we will be very attentive to that. But we did want to thank you all and the Conservancy for being so responsive. And sometimes we only know hours or days before that activity, and we will do our best to alert you as early as possible, but we're very appreciative of that. With that closes up my part. I think Scott's got more to go on. I'm happy to take any questions if you have on those wildland fire items.
Are there any questions for Croy? I hear no questions. Scott?
All right, so I will go through a couple of quick items here. As we move from fire to the ice, surprisingly, it was about 2 weeks ago that we had several inches of snow in the northern area of the preserve. Not quite as much as we had in our Snowmageddon of 2019, but on Monday morning of January 25th, as we were watching the weather forecast and they started talking about potential light, however, snow accumulations down to 2,000 feet. A lot of that north area of the preserve is higher than 2,000 feet. So we began mobilizing on Monday of that week with preparations to close the preserve on Tuesday morning. And we were very prepared, more than we have ever been, because of Snowmageddon, and also last summer because of the McDowell fire. Some of the lessons we learned about our preparedness and being able to shut down areas of the preserve quickly and effectively. We had additional barricades on hand. We had additional signage on hand. Big thanks to Commissioner Coluccio in his role with the Conservancy, as well as Jackie Casey from the Conservancy, sprung into action, got a calendar put up that the volunteers could sign up for. And very quickly we had coverage, and here's some of the photos. Thank you to whoever, I was stealing these off of the Facebook page. So thank you to those who snapped these photos. But obviously you can see we had the north area gates closed, as well as Tom's Thumb. What we've learned in our experience is if we just close the gate and walk away, people tend to sometimes not respect that. So having the stewards there, not only to just kind of backstop the message, but also to be able to direct people. You know, the south part of the preserve was still open. Pinnacle Peak was still open during this time. So being able to kind of redirect them with a smiling face. We had very few complaints, almost no complaints, honestly. And the trails stayed in excellent condition. So we had the north area and Tom's Thumb closed on the 26th. And then since Tom's Thumb is a little bit higher elevation than anywhere in the preserve, we kept it closed on the 27th, gave it just an extra day for the snow to melt and then for it to dry out a little bit before the public got back on those trails. So again, big thanks to everybody who was involved, the city staff, the Conservancy staff, the Conservancy stewards, and the general public. We really got people's attention because several days after this, we kept getting calls here in the office of people just, hey, I wanted to check, just make sure that it's open again. So it really shows us that our message went far and wide, and we did it real effectively. So big thanks to everybody that helped with that. Just quick update on the Pima Dynamite Trailhead. I took these photos yesterday. So you can see the steel going up for the building. The concrete slabs have been poured. All these pipes you see sticking up, that's the men and the women's restrooms. And the roof structure is starting to come up. In the distance here, this piece that sticks out to the north, that is what will be the Art Deco Booter Amphitheater. So we're very excited. This is a shot from the north looking south through the trailhead. So again, here's the restrooms on the left, the bench right up the middle, kind of the way Brown's Ranch is designed. So these will be kind of the paths flowing in and out. The area where I was standing to take this photo is the hub that we've been talking about in several other commission meetings. We've talked about our desire to have multiple trails emanating from that point. This is the phase 3 plan. The big asterisk there, of course, is the trailhead, and then the different colored corridors are the desires to head out to the north on those different trails. This graphic got a little more specific. And then we did have the phase 3 working group out there to do several walks with us as we looked at these different corridor connections, talking about the character of them, the locations. We've walked all of the flag lines. Several commissioners have been involved with this. You can see Lori and Cynthia there with Croy on the ground. This is what has resulted from all of that work. The blue lines are the flag lines of the trails that are now being built and moving from west to east. You have the rawhide connection down to the equestrian area, the axle grease connection, the hawk nest connection. Of course, there is the power line that not everybody loves the power line because of the power lines, but it is there and it is a functional connection. Eventually, we will have the interpretive trail, and then, of course, the Latigo Trail. Almost all of these connections have been built except for the interpretive trail. That'll be the future. And the rawhide connection is still under construction, but by early next week should be completed. We are putting temporary signs on these trail connections with kind of basic trail directions right now on which trail is which and which way to get back to the trailhead. So you can go and you can use these trails today. We will be replacing those signs with permanent ones as the trailhead development gets more near to completion, which we're looking like completion date right now in the middle of July. And then we wanted to point out Area K. On the current trail map, this is shown as an unmapped area. There are some existing trails through it. It's a rather large rock pile that's here in Area K. So it's a draw for a lot of people because of its scenic value and the rock that's there. There's some really good views from there. There is a crested saguaro that is in that location. That's a common destination. So we've been working with the phase 3 group on bringing together some principles behind some specific ideas on how we might manage Area K and provide some access and some routes through it. It's biologically sensitive. There's some cultural sensitivity there. As you can see from this aerial, it's very near the edge of the True North neighborhood. It's right adjacent to the power line corridor. So there's a lot of management issues that are going on right here in this area. So what we will be doing at your next meeting on February 18th, we'll be bringing forward those principles to you and have some additional discussion about that. And then the polling through email that Corey has been doing for you is to schedule the tour to actually go out and see it on the ground. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Scott or Croy? I hear none. Okay, item number 12, upcoming meeting dates, locations, and agenda items. You can see that on your agenda. There we go.
And very quickly, I'll just jump in here. Thank you all for responding on the request for the survey. If everyone is desiring, like Scott just said, we will present Area K next week. And thank you for the flexibility and your response. Commissioner Parker is not available, but everyone else would be at 10 to noon on Sunday, the February 21st. So if you are all good with that, we will plan on going with that date and time. And that way it'll be fresh in your memory, the presentation that Scott will give you next week, next Thursday, and then we can get your feedback and make sure that we address all of your concerns and questions that you may have at that time. With that, that's all I have on the upcoming agenda.
Thank you, Croy. Thank you, Scott. And item number 13, commissioner comments. Anything you'd like to provide, items of interest to the commission? If not, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Steve for his leadership and everything that he's done for us, including, I'm very happy that he's still going to be with us for a number of months. So I have him on speed dial. And also the time that he has spent on the draft general plan. That was a lot of time. Thank you, Steve, for doing all that. Anything else, commissioners? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Coluccio makes a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Steve. And a second, please.
I'll second. Commissioner Dodd seconds.
Commissioner Dodd seconded. And a roll call vote, please. Chair Winstrom votes yes. Vice Chair LaPat Velasco.
Votes yes.
Okay. And then we go to Steve Coluccio,
Votes yes.
Steve Dodd,
Votes yes.
Mark Hartbath is not with us, Marshall Lips,
Marshall Lips votes yes.
and Commissioner Parker is not with us. Thank you. I show we are adjourning at 6:12.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.